Hi everyone, it's Jay West and 5 a Day with Jay. I hope you're enjoying the podcast. I know I am. This is our number fifth podcast, and it's prayer point number 5. And my scripture verse is Proverbs 16:9. We shared on it yesterday. I'm going to share it again. We can make our plans, but the Lord determines our steps. And I talked about a little bit yesterday, alluding to the fact of how God will interrupt our plans with something else. And sometimes it's an annoyance, sometimes it's a blessing, but we look at it, we wonder what in the world was going on until we get away from it. And I'm just going to share a story how that interruption can turn out good even in the midst of something bad. I was flying home from Texas. I had ministered to a lady in a convenience store and prayed for her, and she had gotten well. She was the clerk there. Took her picture, which I often do just to share it with others. And my flight going into Detroit, which was going to then go on to Omaha with Delta, was delayed because there was a storm in Detroit, and we circled the airport for a long time. Finally, the pilot came on and said, folks, we're running out of fuel. We're going to Indianapolis to fuel up, and then we're coming back here to Detroit. So we fly over to Indianapolis. That's about an hour flight. And then we're on the ground for an hour. So that's 2 hours plus the hour circling. That's 3 hours. And finally, we take off and we go back to Detroit. That's 4 hours now. I'm 4 hours late. And get into the airport. I know I've missed my final flight to Omaha. I know that airport hotels are super, super expensive. There's lots of other people who are milling around. They've missed their flights too. Some are already laying down on the floor and trying to catch a nap. And I'm thinking, I don't really want to sleep on the floor. But I looked at the closest hotel, and it was $400. I said, I don't really want to pay $400 at 10 or 11 o'clock at night and be back here at 6 in the morning. And so I asked the clerk if they had anywhere where they have a coupon. She said, yeah, there's a stand down here just a little ways, couple of gates. Go down and talk to them. I went down and talked to them. Sweet black lady was there, told her my story. And she started looking for coupons. I said, do you need any prayer? She goes, no, not really. I said, do you have any pain? She goes, well, yeah, I have a lot of pain. I said, what's going on? She said, well, I jammed my big toe this morning. I split the toenail back to the cuticle. And I've been limping around all day. It's certainly in pain. I said, well, I believe God can heal that. And she goes, it's too big for God. I kind of laughed. I said, no, it's not. And I said, do you mean your big toe's too big? She goes, no, I mean, it's too much for him to handle. I said, he can handle this. And then I shared the testimony of the lady at the convenience store in Texas. I said, do you want to see her picture? And she said, yes. And I showed her a picture, and she goes, well, she's smiling. She's happy. I said, well, of course she is. I took the picture after she got well. So this sweet black lady said, you can pray for me if you want, but nothing's going to happen. I said, okay. I prayed a 20-second prayer. I said, can you walk from here to that post down there? It's like a little pillar, and it's like 20 feet, and just because there's a miracle when you check. And she said, okay. She shrugged her shoulders. She walked. She got halfway there. She looked back at me. She literally said to me, she says, how did you do that? I said, do what? She said, I have no pain. I've been limping around all day, and there's no pain in my toe at all. How did you do that? I said, I didn't do it, but God did it. And then she said, she came back, she held my hand, she said, you bless me, I'm going to bless you. And she went off and talked to somebody for a little bit. Then she came back to me, and she said, I just got it approved from my supervisor. We're giving you a free night at the Marriott right here next to the airport. And I said, yeah, I looked that place up. That's $400. She goes, yep, we're giving it to you for free. Normally we don't do it with weather delays, but I convinced her that we should bless you. And so what happened? I had a delay in my flight. I used prayer to bless somebody else, and God came back and blessed me. And that's what this scripture says. It says, we make our plans, but the Lord determines our steps. And the Lord had me in that airport to pray for that lady, even though it was a delay in my trip. So not every delay is a bad thing. So, Father, for those that are watching, if they've had delays, let them remember that you're in control of their lives, you're controlling their steps, and you can make amazing, wonderful things happen, even out of the delays. And that we would trust you in the delays and not get all uptight and worried and full of anxiety and stress, although we tend to do that, don't we? But to relax and have peace and say, okay, God's in control, and I believe he's going to make something good happen. So thanks a lot for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.